You've built your wireless infrastructure, and it is just wonderful. You really ensured there was no absorption of your wireless signal. There was no interference from other devices. You even made it so that the range of the wireless cell was dramatically expanded out to every possible area of your network. But now you realize that your information that is being transmitted over this wireless network is being captured, and it's being read. And you've got individuals using your wireless network like a doormat, just enjoying complimentary high-speed internet access. Wireless security is certainly on the forefront of minds of network engineers today, and this particular video is going to walk you through the evolution of wireless network security and talk to you about the latest and greatest measures you can engage in to ensure that while your users can enjoy the convenience of wireless, they are not doing this at the risk of your corporate information. Wireless local area networking, wireless mobility, these are areas, as we've discussed in previous live lessons, that are hugely popular. If there's anything that has slowed down this particular aspect of networking, it would be the fact that security has not always been the best, the most well thought through area, and security is on the minds of folks right away when they think about their information being sent through the airwaves as part of these radio frequencies. In this lesson, we're going to take a detailed look at this whole area of wireless security, and we'll even go on a bit of a history lesson as we examine how this particular topic has evolved, thank goodness, over about a decade. When it comes to wireless LANs, we have this very interesting threat that pops up, and it stems back from something that used to be called war dialing. Now we have this concept of war driving. War driving are these individuals that are driving around looking for unsecured wireless hotspots to either get free internet with, or even worse, to grab confidential information that we at least would want to keep confidential. Something else that we have to realize is, of course, there is a hacker community out there, and they would love to wreak havoc with your wireless infrastructure, and they'll prey upon weak or non-existent security. By the way, it always amazes me how many wireless cells out there, the people that have them would want them protected, but there's no security whatsoever. They're wide open. It never ceases to amaze me if you're like in an apartment, condominium type complex, how you can inevitably enjoy some free surfing of the internet without registering for a darn thing. Also, we have to watch out for our employees. They might not be doing this maliciously. They may have the very best intentions in mind, but they like to bring in consumer-grade wireless devices these days and try and make your corporate network a bit more convenient for themselves. How many times have we read about wireless access points under desks that have been brought in from home as they attempt to make your network a bit more convenient? All of these topics and more are concerns for us when we look at this topic of network security, particularly in the area of wireless. Folks, I want you to keep in mind something that we talked about in an earlier lesson. I want you to keep in mind that security triad when you think about wireless. The triad can be remembered, by the way, with the very easy and appropriate, in the United States, acronym of CIA. In the United States, we have an organization here called the CIA, and it's all about security for the country I guess. I'm so uneducated when it comes to the CIA in the United States. I won't talk about it anymore. But anyways, it has to do with security. And that's an easy way for us to remember our security triad. It's confidentiality. Let's make sure that sensitive information, when it's going through the wireless infrastructure, is kept secret. Let's make sure that can't be intercepted and it can't be read. Let's also make sure the data has integrity. Remember what we mean by integrity. We mean that the data is not being changed in the middle of the process of the transfer and then sent on the way to the recipient in this corrupted manner. And then finally, let's make sure that there is the authentication piece. When you are speaking in the wireless network and you think you're speaking with a particular file server, let's make darn sure that you are speaking to that file server. Quick note here on the security triad. I just wanted to point out that in some environments, in some textbooks, I should say, you'll often see availability in place of authentication. But for me personally, when I'm assisting someone securing their wireless infrastructure, I think confidentiality, integrity, and authentication. That, for me, is the security triad that I want to make sure that I get carried out for my client. Now, as I said, wireless security has certainly evolved. And it's really funny that in 1997, they came up with this security process for wireless called WEP, Wired Equivalent Privacy. Why I say this is funny is because they were very far overreaching with this name. Wired Equivalent Privacy? Nice try. No, there is absolutely no comparison between WEP and the privacy that we can get on the protected wire these days. No chance. What's wrong with WEP, Wired Equivalent Privacy? The problem with WEP is that there is this static, unchanging shared key that is sent across the wireless infrastructure, and it is breakable. The whole WEP process can be hacked. And not only can it be hacked, but as I said, this is a static, unchanging key. So once it's hacked, the security hacker can have a field day. So WEP is no longer considered sufficient security for our enterprise infrastructure where we would care about security. Now, as you're about to see, I'm doing WEP in my home. But you know what? I'm out here in the country and I don't even care much about war driving. I'm putting WEP on there as just some security instead of no security. So again, we do still see WEP today, but we see it in environments where we don't want it open, but yet we don't really care about intense security. By the way, I should have on this list open, because that is a legitimate case. If you run a coffee shop and on open mic night Tuesdays, you want people to be able to surf the web if the open mic musician really is terrible, you want it wide open. You don't want your employees of the coffee shop to be handing out and instructing people on how to get onto the wireless infrastructure. You want the reverse. You want them without any problem whatsoever. You want them to, in a carefree manner, be able to get right on your wireless connection. So open networks are an important aspect of this. No security whatsoever. All right. So for environments where we want bare minimum security, WEP is appropriate. Notice in 2001, they came up with something very, very important. They came up with the authentication piece. I'll talk to you a little bit later on about this really cool invention called 802.1x, and I'll show you how that works. In 2003, they came up with finally the replacement for WEP. It's called Wi-Fi Protected Access, WPA. And in 2004 to today, they came up with an enterprise level of strength for that WPA. This is part of an initiative called 802.11i, and it's now called WPA2, and it is the ultimate levels of protection. And as a matter of fact, you can even go in and say, you know what? I want a personal mode that would be appropriate for my house. I'm in a condominium complex. There are many, many, many people around me that could pick up my signal. I want the power of WPA, and I just need it in a simple, easy to implement home mode. Pretty cool. If you're in an enterprise and you want the most sophisticated of privacy here, we go with WPA in enterprise mode. You're going to do 802.1x for the authentication, and you're going to do the advanced encryption standard, AES, for the encryption of the signal. So you're using the absolute best of breed security technologies in the enterprise WPA mode to make sure your wireless infrastructure is secure. So how exciting is that? Different modes of the replacement to WEP for the right size infrastructure. By the way, I just want to thank the awesome graphic artists that helped me with this course at stormwindlive.com. Look at how cool that wireless router is. Look at that piece of art. So thanks to the good people at Stormwind Live for the graphic contribution. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about two things. The SSID. A lot of people kind of confuse this with security. This is the name of the wireless cell, and it really doesn't have anything to do with security, although there is one cute little step that you can do with the SSID, and that is to not beacon it out. Don't have this beautiful wireless router, don't have it advertise it through the air of, ABC network, ABC network, ABC network. This is a nice little security step because if the casual war driver brings up a site survey utility and they say, they just boot up a Windows machine that'll look out there for all the wireless networks, they won't see yours if you're not beaconing the service set identifier. Please keep in mind that this is in no way a replacement for any kind of security, because if it's not a casual war driver, they'll literally have a tool that can still find your SSID. But to not beacon it is certainly a nice little step. Now let's talk about 802.1x. 802.1x is a really, really cool methodology for sophisticated authentication. And let me show you how this would work. With 802.1x, we have a couple of different entities. We have a computer, okay? We have a computer that wants to get onto your wireless network, and this has a really cool name in 802.1x. It's a supplicant. Yeah, it's called a supplicant. I looked this up in the Webster's Dictionary, and it means to beg. It means literally one that's begging. So just think of the 802.1x computer that wants to get on your network as begging to get on your wireless network. Now what you have is you have a piece of network equipment which is called the authenticator. The authenticator. This could be, for example, your wireless device. Okay? And then what you have is a server in your network infrastructure that's called the authentication server. So this is so cool how this works. This supplicant says, hey, I want to get on the wireless network. The authenticator says, okay, you need to provide me with the appropriate credentials. Those are then returned to the authenticator. Then the authenticator goes up to the authentication server and says, okay, is this person allowed? The authentication server says, let's say yes. And then this device says, okay, come on in. So this is a very, very secure process for your authentication issue in a wireless network. And what's so cool is, as you might guess, this authentication server can work in conjunction with like your Microsoft Active Directory. So you can have a central store of your databases for user accounts, and that'll work just fine with your wireless 802.1x infrastructure. Now, when you're setting up your wireless security, the graphical user interface software is either, decent at helping you with this or really, really good. In my case here, the wireless setup is really, really good. Look at this. I go into my wireless device, and the first thing I do is, okay, do we want wireless on or off? Boy, that'd be one way to secure your wireless. Go ahead and turn it off. Yeah, that would do it. Then what's our SSID? Notice, by the way, these are the basic security settings, and then I can go to the advanced security settings. So they broke that down nicely for me. So here's the basics. On or off, what's the SSID, what's the channel? And then, as we look down here, do we want simple WEP? If we want WEP, we say yes, or we turn off security altogether for that open network, or we go to WPA or WPA2, including 802.1x. If we're going to do WEP, we go ahead and provide the key length, our WEP key, and we are good to go. They even give us this thing that says, write all these settings down so that you can give them to the individuals that want to get on your network. If we go over to the advanced security settings, and it looks like I've timed out, let me log back in. Watch how cool this is. If we go over to advanced, we go up to, let me go back to wireless here, hold on. That's pretty cool, isn't it, from a security perspective that this timed me out. Pretty cool. So we go into basic security settings and then advanced security settings. Here we go. Look at this. It says, all right, we'll step you through a more advanced security setup. It says WEP, WEP plus 802.1x, WPA, WPA2, and then it says, stop your router from broadcasting its SSID. Wow, so it'll walk us through the level 2. And then look at this, I love it, level 3. Wireless MAC authentication as an option. This is so awesome. So we are literally going to lock down the MAC addresses that are allowed to come in and be used in our infrastructure. You're literally locking it down to my wife's iPad, my daughter's iPad, my son's Android, and my personal computer, and you can lock it down to those devices getting on. This MAC authentication is what people did when all they had was WEP. They realized, oh no, all we have is WEP, it can be broken, people can go ahead and attack me. I better do MAC authentication to guard against that. So, the wonderful world of wireless security. You may be in an environment where you don't want any at all. You may be in an environment where you want just some measure of security. You may be in an environment where you want a higher measure of security. That would be WPA in our personal mode. Or you may be in an environment where at all costs you need to make sure that no one violates your confidentiality, integrity, and authentication of your data. So you go for WPA2 in the enterprise mode, and you're going to go through a lot of hard work. Setting up the 802.1x, setting up the advanced encryption, etc. It's going to be well worth it, though. Let me leave you with this last thought in this area of wireless security. If you're setting this up for the first time, and maybe you're even doing it for yourself at home, I would strongly recommend that you set everything up with no security whatsoever initially. So get all your iPads and iPods and iDogs, get them all set up, get your wireless printers set up, get your wireless cell all happy. Then go ahead and add your security and get those devices happy, one at a time with the security infrastructure. And that's just really a good practice, because if you try and do it all at once, you try and do your Wi-Fi implementation at the same time you're trying to do your security implementation, you're not going to know if you're messing up the security or you've messed up the initial wireless integration. So do it in phases, typically, is what you would want to do. One last thought on wireless security. Like you saw in my demonstration, the software, okay, remember when we looked at the particular wireless software that I have this software right here, vendors are trying to make it easier and easier for you to implement this security. I mean, there is literally devices now that have like a security button that you push physically on the device. You run over to the other device, push the security button during the initial setup, and everything's done automatically for you. So good news, security, wireless manufacturers are going to strive to make this easier and easier for us. Thank you so much for your attendance in this particular lesson.